All right. Okay. Well, welcome everybody. We are here to talk about Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, the cinematic masterpiece, as we like to say. And we have here joining me, I'm Rachel Wagner, and we have here Abby and Jeremy. And if you just want to say hi real quick.
Hi.
Hi.
And if you didn't get a chance to watch our discussion on The Phantom Menace, definitely go check that out. It's posted on my YouTube page, and we're trying to actually talk about these movies in an intelligent way, and we're not just ranting. Even though I'll just say it out front, I really hate this film, but I'm gonna try my best to try to talk about it in some kind of intelligent way, and so I thought I'd start with a summary that I did, kind of like we did last week. And so here is the summary that I came up with for Attack of the Clones. It's a little bit longer because there's just a little bit more going on. So excuse me while I read for just a sec. It's taking place 10 years after the events of Phantom Menace. Attack of the Clones focuses on mounting threats to the Republic. Padme Amidala is now a senator, and she goes to Coruscant to vote on building up the army to thwart threats. However, there is an assassination attempt on her life using killer centipede-like creatures. Obi-Wan and Anakin are put in charge of protecting her, but Obi-Wan goes after Jango Fett, the bounty hunter, instead. Anakin then takes Padme to Naboo to hide, but a romance develops between the two. Obi-Wan finds out an army of clones is being made for the Republic with Jango Fett as the DNA. Anakin and Padme decide to leave Naboo when he has a dream about his mother on Tatooine. When they arrive, he finds his mother has been taken by the Tuskens, who then Anakin seeks out. His mother dies in his arms, and in his rage he kills all the Tuskens, women and children included. He tells Padme, and she is sympathetic. Meanwhile, Obi-Wan is on Geonosis. Jedi Master Count Dooku, however you say it, is building an army out of droids, and that he wanted Padme dead. In fear, the Senate gives Palpatine emergency powers, and the clones are sent into battle. Anakin and Padme attempt to rescue Obi-Wan on Geonosis, and they are almost killed, but a group of warrior Jedis and their clone army fight a battle against the droids and Count Dooku. Anakin and Obi-Wan fight Dooku with a lightsaber along with Yoda, with Anakin losing his right arm. Dooku flees from Yoda's power and goes back to Coruscant and presents his plans for the Death Star super weapon. Anakin and Padme marry to end the film. So, did I miss anything? What do you think?
I think you got it all in there.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Okay, good. I tried. Okay, well, I guess let's just first start with sort of our general thoughts of the film on a rewatch. I'll just go first. I hated this film, and it's actually I hated it when I first saw it, and it's kind of a surprise, really, because I love dopey romances. Like, I'm somebody who's watching Hallmark movies and Lifetime original movies, and really cheesy romances. Like, that's kind of my bread and butter sometimes. And so you'd think that I would maybe be more open to this film than maybe other people might. But it's just so... It's just... The writing is so bad and the acting is so bad that I can't even... I don't know. It's just frustrating. But so on the rewatch, I have to say I did notice a few more things that I did like in segments. So I guess it's kind of like with Phantom Menace, where I was really, I'd always been defending it a little bit, and then on the rewatch I was like, this one I have to admit that I was like, oh, well, I like that, and there are a few things, so it's sort of an opposite response in a way to some, so that was kind of my sort of thoughts on the rewatch, but the acting and the writing is just really hard to push behind, so... That's me.
Yeah, I get you there. When we finished it, Jeremy turns to me and he goes, "What do you think was worse, the acting or the writing?"
That's actually one of my questions.
I was just like, you really shouldn't have to ask that question. You know, just the fact that that question needs to be asked is a really sad statement about this movie.
Yeah.
But there are some real strengths. I felt like as compared to Phantom Menace, this one has higher highs, it has stronger strengths, and it also has lower lows. Its bad parts are so painfully awful.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I really. My biggest issue with it was I had a really hard time staying focused on it. I was looking at Twitter. I was like, oh, I have to watch this and pay attention to it. But yeah, that was my impression.
Hey, Twitter made both these movies a lot more entertaining for me.
So this is admittedly the movie that I dread the most watching out of the series. Just if Anakin and Padme never went to Naboo, I would just be so much happier. I can't stand the relationship dialogue that they go through, and Abby said this. I can handle a romantic comedy or just a romance movie, but it was just bad. Any of the interactions between them, we just look at each other like we can't stand it, and we want it to stop. Oh my gosh. So if the scenes in Naboo between the two of them, if you get rid of those, I think you get rid of most of the lowest lows in the movie. But there are so many redeeming qualities. I can't say I hate the whole movie because I really don't. I really enjoy discovering the clone army and then the kind of mystery about who ordered them and for what purpose. Because the Jedi Council had no idea, but they were ordered by a Jedi. And then, going into the final battle with Anakin and Obi-Wan, and you can kind of see that neither one of them is really, progressed all that far yet, and so they're not able to defeat Dooku. And for the first time ever, you get the full CG Yoda, and that's where they're able to have him do a full-on lightsaber battle with Dooku. And to me, that's like the coolest part of the movie. Is
really? Oh, I wasn't a fan. But we'll talk about that later. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's all right. I feel like those were my highest highs and lowest lows. But all in all, still I see it as a necessary evil on the way to Episode 3, which is what I'm excited for next.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. I agree. I mean, I feel like you almost want to sort of discount it as sort of a soap opera, the romantic part, but it's not campy enough to be a soap opera. Like you watch a soap opera or a telenovela or something like that, like it's so silly that it's sort of entertaining, but I don't feel like that has that sort of that sort of charm.
It takes itself too seriously, and that's its fatal flaw.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So it was tough, I admit it, to come up with questions, but I hope I tried my best to my very first question, it's really funny because you said that is the acting or the screenplay more at fault?
and it's impossible to tell.
Yeah.
There are times when you're just like, really, someone wrote this on paper for an actor to say,
yeah.
And then you think, if I were given that line, is there any way to make it better? And sometimes there's not. And so it's really tough to say who really acted poorly considering the lines they were given.
Yeah, I think writing has the greater responsibility here because we have actors who have proven themselves in other films. Like, they're not bad actors. Some of them are. But several of them are not. They've proven themselves. We've seen them in other things and they didn't act horribly.
Right.
the writing. You can't outact a bad script. You just can't do it.
Well, and George Lucas is famous for being really terrible at working with actors. And I just had these two quotes. Mark Hamill, he said, "I would talk to George about, say, Luke and what he is feeling. Should I be jealous that this guy is hitting on the princess?" George would say, "That's interesting. We'll talk about it later," which, of course, we never would. And then Hayden Christensen said, "How those movies are made is very specific as far as what our jobs are. George isn't looking for us to come in and have script meetings with him and talk about the characters. It wasn't necessarily anything you could feel good about creatively, as far as this is why I became an actor." So, I
Well, and you get the line that the cast jokes about a lot is George would say, "Again, with more intensity," and that would be repeated over and over again in between scenes is, "Okay, let's do it again, and with more intensity." And so they're not necessarily getting specific direction beyond it wasn't quite what he wanted, so try something else.
Yeah. Well, and I just think, like, Lucas, I just have to believe he kind of let the ego go to his head. I feel like it's a lot of the same problem you get with the weaker, in my opinion, weak Shyamalan films, where, he has to be everything to everyone, whereas in the original trilogy, he had different people directing and different people writing and different people, like here he had, like in Jedi and in they had Irvin Kershner directing, and then Lawrence Kasdan writing, and then Lawrence Kasdan was also writing the screenplay in Return of the Jedi. And in this one, he had a guy named Jonathan Hales that was writing, and he had previously done 2 episodes, I believe, of Young Indiana Jones. So not quite the, and it's just when you give somebody that kind of long leash, it rarely works out very well, unfortunately. Nobody can be good at everything. And so Lucas, I don't know, I think should have taken a little bit of a humility pill on this one and gotten some help on the writing. And, if he's not good with working with actors, why is he working with the actors? Why not have someone else do that? I don't get it.
Yeah,
I think this one was a little bit more these prequels are a little more self-indulgent than his first 3. He had to work harder for those. And with this one, it was like, people are going to watch him, so I'm going to do what I want. And what he wanted was something really crappy, apparently. Yeah.
Well, and it's frustrating because I do think my next question was, if the script was good and the acting was good, that's a big if, is the core story good? And yeah, so I don't know. What do you think, Abby? You can start. Do you think a core story?
I don't know. I don't think it was super strong. It had a lot of holes in it. Why is Anakin, for example, the security guard for this really high-profile person?
Yeah.
She's been the queen. She's a senator. He's a Padawan who his mentor is concerned about. Like, he's not. There are a lot of problems with the idea that he would even be doing that.
Yeah, I agree.
I think there are some plot issues with it, but I think if the writing had been better, they would have either explained these issues, or they would have eliminated them and said, you know what, this really doesn't work. Because that's what good writers do. They make a story that works.
Right. Well, and just things like the fact that Jango would send this shapeshifter at the beginning to kill Padme, to assassinate Padme, and she's in this room that is completely glass. But what does he decide to do? He uses a centipede assassin. It's like, I don't know, things like that. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Jango Fett's supposed to be like super, tough guy, and at least Boba Fett always, was. Yeah. And he certainly wasn't sending people out to do his work for him. And it's things like that are just frustrating, and they seem just so silly.
The thing is, we're already fans. We're walking into this movie. We're already Star Wars fans. We've already shown that we're willing to suspend our disbelief to a certain degree, and he asks us to take it too far. He asks too much of us.
What about you, Jeremy? What do you think about the core story?
Well, to me, the biggest things that happen is you have the acquisition of the clone army to combat the droid army, and you have this love story between Padme and Anakin. And to me, I can't get over this idea that so 10 years has passed, and Anakin has been pining for her for 10 years, and I just don't see her accepting him as anything but this creepy little kid who's been, kind of like not stalking her, but the whatever it is when you stay at home and stalk somebody.
Yeah.
So he just comes off as really like ultra creepy to me. And then even after they go to Tatooine and he comes back to her with his dead mom in his arms, and he's like, I killed them all, even the women and the children, and she's just like, oh, it's okay.
Whatever.
I love you. I want to marry you, and that's what we do in the next scene together. And I just don't know how does she not have red flags going up everywhere? Just this is not the guy to be with.
Yeah, it makes no sense. That it's completely nonsensical. Like, if somebody came to you and said, look, I just killed an entire village, your first response would be, it is human to be angry, or anger is part of being human. I'm like, really? Okay. Like, I don't know. Like, this just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, like, is she just dumb? I mean, like, she doesn't get it? I just don't understand.
But that doesn't align with her character, because she's presented as being this really smart, competent, powerful woman.
Yeah, which is why it doesn't make any sense. And maybe that's where it makes sense, is she's just also so in love with him that she's completely blinded to whatever he does and whatever his flaws are.
Well, and another problem that we have with Padme, that was actually my next question, is that she's supposed to be this really strong, powerful woman, but like in the two movies, what have we actually seen her do that is strong and powerful? We saw her give one speech before the Senate in Phantom Menace. In this, she sends Jar Jar, of all people, to do her job. I mean, that's not good. Like,
Excellent point there.
But
I think it's a great example of how competent you need to be a senator.
Yeah, right. I mean, there's just no proof that she is so brilliant. Like, we haven't seen anything, and the fact that she would like do nonsensical things, like even the fact that she would go with that she wouldn't say something and be like, why don't you, Anakin, go look for Jango Fett, and Obi-Wan, you stay with me? Like, that would make so much more sense. But yeah, I mean, I do think the one part of the story that really does, I think, work for me, and that I think is, as far as a core story, is I think this idea of like Palpatine and like wanting their emergency power, and like the fact of like the chaos, that we're willing to like give up. We're willing to give up so many rights. I mean, it's a little bit hard because you can compare it to, like a Hitler or somebody like that. That they were willing to give rights away in a time of chaos. Mm-hmm. But it's not really the same, because you're dealing with democracies in that point, whereas this is a governing body, which is a little bit different than like people voting and people,
It's not the same as if like the general public were to respond.
Yeah, like you never see anybody in Naboo or anybody in any, these kind of things rallying around and trying to force the people to give away these emergency powers. It's all, whether he could convince the Senate to do these things. Like, it's not a public outcry because of the madness of crowds and everything like that. But I think that there is something there, at least, that's kind of interesting about the sort of the willingness, and to be honest, that hasn't always been a bad thing. Like, I mean, we basically gave Lincoln those powers, and that turned out pretty well. So,
yeah, I've seen this as a parallel to the Roman Empire, with Caesar being given the emergency powers and then not relinquishing them after the time had passed. And so you have parallels there, and I see it is a republic, and so in this version of their republic, you don't necessarily have the vision of everybody going back to their home planets and talking with the people about what their thoughts are. We don't really see that piece, so it may exist to some degree, but in the end, the decision did lie with the Senate. And but again, I do enjoy that little political bit of him getting the powers, and it gives you maybe the impression that he was behind ordering the clone army, knowing what was going to come, because they're playing both sides at this point. They're working with the Trade Federation to build up the droid army to give cause for him to get to claim emergency powers for this clone army that's appeared out of nowhere. So really part of his idea for getting this empire off the ground. Really interesting to see all the political machinations that he's used to get there.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I like that part. I wish that we had almost more of it, or that I always, in these prequels, I wish Palpatine was a bigger character. I think he's interesting, and I wish we got more of him. But I guess I was going to ask about Padme. We kind of already talked about her a little bit, but the other thing, too, that she does that's really nonsensical that I don't get is she is wearing all these, like, really, really sexy clothes. Like, what are you doing? Like, you're...
There's a scene where she's like totally rejecting him and telling him, no, I can't do this. And she's dressed like a toned down dominatrix.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. And I mean, it doesn't help that you have George Lucas's writing of, I don't like sand, it's coarse, and I mean, just writing like that, and for even a dopey love story, Nicholas Sparks movie or something like that, you have to have chemistry. You have to have something about sort of the couple that you like and that you're rooting for, and you just don't have it here. It doesn't work.
Right, you're not, like, you never root for them. The whole time I'm just thinking, he is a creepy little teenager. Why isn't she just totally shutting him down from day one?
Yeah, it doesn't. And the fact he's supposed to be, like, protecting her, and they're, like, out in fields, and they're, like, running. It doesn't make any sense.
Oh yeah,
man.
And terrible CG cows that they have out there.
Yeah.
It was, and so you pair the worst CG in the movie with probably the worst love dialogue ever written, and it just makes for a bad scene.
Like I said, because even like a soap opera or something like that is like fun, and this isn't fun. So, yeah, I agree. Okay, why did Lucas make the Jedi celibate? Or, why can't they love? Like, that to me made no sense. Like, there's no like advantage, and like especially if you wanted the Jedis to the midichlorians or whatever, if that's where you're going, why not? You'd want them to be able to produce and have offspring, and the midichlorians to keep going down, and that doesn't make sense to me. Why he all of a sudden added that in, because you never got that feeling in the original trilogy with like Luke and Leia and their kiss and that they have before they know. I don't know. Like, why do you think he did that?
Yeah,
I think.
Go on.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
Okay, I was just gonna say you make a good point there with the original, and I think part of it is Luke has not been indoctrinated in the Jedi ways. He's really just whatever he's gotten from Obi-Wan, and I'm doubting that Obi-Wan was touting all of the Council's policies. He kind of flirted not on that particular policy, but he didn't really. He kind of inherited Qui-Gon's kind of you do what you need to do attitude rather than following all the policies and rules. But I think Lucas designed that as kind of a way to show, sort of like priests, that they are set apart from the people, that they're meant to live a life that was a little bit different, that and you separate yourself from the passion, and I think that's where you kind of get in this balance where the opposite of love is hate, and when you go into those relationships and you learn to love in that way, it makes it easier to go to hate, which also makes it easier to go to the dark side. And so I feel like they're trying to, in Anakin's words, they encourage compassion is one of the biggest pieces of being a Jedi, and so he uses that to justify that Jedis are supposed to love, and so that's his rationalization to having the relationship. But I think the intent is to have a higher form of love while staying out of physical relationships, to try and make yourself more spiritual or something to that degree.
So my feeling on it is it's sort of like the hero's conundrum. So like you get a superhero like Spider-Man, and he falls in love with MJ, and because he's in love with MJ, she's constantly in danger, kind of a thing. So I wonder if part of that is just to, and of course, when their love interest is in trouble, then they're not focused and they get themselves into trouble. And my feeling is that I guess maybe they're trying to avoid that situation for them. But I think cinematically, it's a lot more interesting for Jedis to be more like superheroes and to be able to fall in love and get themselves into those situations, because that's what makes superheroes interesting most of the time.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I like Jeremy's point about it kind of making a natural sort of flip side to the dark side, but I don't know. I just feel like there could have been stronger, more like subtle, I guess, ways to get him there that would have been more interesting. But yeah, I think they could be right.
This is not about subtlety.
Yeah, that's very true.
Well, the odd thing is, on the flip side, you don't see the Sith going off and marrying people, and it's just kind of a weird thing. And maybe on both sides, maybe your connection to the Force is weakened when you are. I don't know. I have no idea how to explain it, because again, you don't see the Sith running around getting married as like, "Ha, we're not Jedi, so we can get married."
Neener.
And I think, this episode too, the relationship with Padme and Anakin, I think that was kind of, you're trying to show something taboo on Naboo. Okay, never.
We could start rapping. That would be great.
But I think so. I think they're trying to show like how this led Anakin to the dark side. But holy cow! As I messaged out when I was watching it, I was like, this show gives me feelings that lead to the dark side itself.
Yeah, I agree. Me too. That middle section is rough.
But that's
I don't know how.
That's I think the point here is you have Anakin. His love is what really leads him to the dark side. And so in this episode, you see it was his love for his mother that drove him really kind of insane to go and kill this entire village. And in the next episode, you're going to see the love for Padme is going to drive him even farther down the dark side. Yeah. And so that's really the key is, and so I think that's why Lucas went as far as he did to show you the love. So and you have this phrase later in the early movies where there's good in him and I can feel it, and there is, because it's all founded on this love for other people, but he just gets it twisted, and he doesn't really know how to show that love when he's angry.
Right. Okay. The next question I had is, does the clones and the making of the clones off of Jango Fett and his whole character and the whole thing with his son, does that work for you? And I guess my other follow-up question is, why is it called Attack of the Clones? The clones are for the Republic, right? The droids are attacking. Isn't that right?
Yes. So the Trade Federation has the droid army, which is what is harassing the Republic. and the clones were created for the other side, which is to be the Republic Army. So the title Attack of the Clones, I think it's awful, it's terrible. Even if they had called it the beginning of the Clone Wars or something, or I don't know. I think there's so many different ways you could go. You could just call it Episode 2. We had to do this to get to Episode 3.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. What do you think of Jango Fett, though? Did you like his character with his son, the whole thing with his son?
I thought it was really cool, more than anything, just to see, little Boba, and kind of see what drives him. I think we all like backstory, especially with an appealing villain like Boba Fett. So I think it's interesting to see, why does he hate Jedi? Well, he basically saw his father die because of his interactions with Jedi, and so you have this animosity. I like the idea of him being a physical specimen, a model for clones, and that's kind of leads to why Boba is such an adversary and an intelligent adversary in the future. And just a good adversary. And so he was good enough that they wanted to model an army after his dad, and after him, since his DNA is the same. So I think it's really neat backstory. Did we have to have it included? No, but I thought it was a nice way to give a little extra for Boba.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on that, Abby?
I think the concept of a Clone War is really cool. When I first saw it, that actually was one of the things I liked about this movie, was the whole clone army thing and the storyline with Jango and Boba Fett. And I just like having the backstory too. I didn't think there was anything about it that was particularly off the mark or that didn't really make any sense. So it worked for me.
Yeah, aside from that title, that's the only part that really doesn't make sense. And you know that you have a problem if the title for your movie doesn't make sense. That's a huge problem. Like, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could have had Episode 2, Escape to Naboo.
Yeah, or Attack of the Droids. Wouldn't that be?
That at least accurate.
Although they did start using the droids in Episode 1, so you would have to again question why the title.
Yeah, or like, I don't know. You could even have a little bit of fun with it, like
Dark
Star
Side
Wars. Yeah, like I don't know. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but something to do with a horrible romance. I don't know.
Yeah. Again, I think that the movie suffered from, this didn't need to be 3 movies.
Yeah.
And so you have, I think maybe 2 would have gotten it done in a much better way. And so I think, again, that it leads to the title. That this movie had a lot of things going on. There's a little bit better plot, timeline going on here than in the first one. But I still felt it was a lot of scattered events happening rather than we're going in a clear direction. I still see us as really gathering backstory for Episode 3, which is the real story George wanted to tell.
Yeah, I agree. And I also agree that I did like the relationship between Jango and his son and getting to know Boba Fett and his backstory. I thought that's really good. Okay, so let's talk about next. How about the special effects? Better or worse than Menace?
Both. I think it has some. What kills me about these movies is some of the special effects are really pretty good. I mean, you look
especially
at Yoda,
for the time.
Yeah, you look at Yoda and he looks great. Like the fact that he is CGI is pretty cool. But then you have like those weird, I don't even know what they're called, the weird, tall, skinny aliens with the...
Yeah.
They look horrible. And then you have like that weird cow thing on wherever they were.
Naboo.
where they're frolicking around in the grass, and the cow looks horrible. And then they do this CG where he's flying off of it, and it looks like a cartoon. It doesn't look good at all.
I thought that a lot of the opening chase sequence, the opening race, I thought that looked a lot like an animated film. It really did to me.
Yeah. Oh, there's one scene that's really awful. It's when who is it?
Yeah, I
Is it-
was gonna say only one.
Is it Dooku that's on the he's on like a little transport scooter thingy?
Oh yeah. When he's fleeing ahead of the clone army.
Yeah. And he's on the transport and his legs are like dangling and it just looks like a really bad green screen. And he looks awkward and stiff on the transport, and you can tell that he's not really moving. He's just sitting in a studio on this thing. It's very obvious.
And the real problem I have with that is you're right. It looks terrible. It looks like the Harry Potter wizards on their brooms when he's flying around. But the big problem I have is in Episode 6, you have Return of the Jedi, and they're on speeder bikes that are very similar to what he was flying around on, and it didn't look bad.
Right. So why did it look horrible this time? I don't understand.
But again, we're going to green screen, and this is one of the problems. Is you've basically got like when you go to the video arcade and you can get on the motorbike in front of the video game, and you're stationary, and it's making you feel like you're moving. It's not the same as actually moving.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that once they get to the actual, and we're going to talk about this next, the actual clone battle, droid versus clone battle, I do think the special effects are pretty good in that whole. That's my favorite part of the movie. I think it's really pretty exciting. It's cool to see like all these Jedis fighting, and I mean, people will nitpick and be like, how could he have a purple lightsaber? I'm like, I don't really care about that, but overall, I think it's a pretty exciting sequence. What do you think about that?
Well, I'll go back first to the CG. I felt like the best example of it was Yoda. Especially there's a scene where he's in a room with like blinds with light coming through, and it's mostly dark though, and you can see like just the incredible care and effort that was made to make that scene look good, and it was just an incredible feat, I thought, for the computer graphics of the time. And again, let's just go back to the cows was the absolute worst thing. Whatever those things were on Naboo just looked terrible. Another scene that Abby pointed out when we were watching, and she turns and says, "Is this a video game?" When Padme and Anakin are in the factory and they are avoiding the machines, or no, she asked if it was a cartoon. This just reminded us of like Looney Tunes type stuff when they're trying to hop through the machine arms as they're avoiding being squished and all that. And again, it's another animated scene that I just didn't think was quite there.
I mean, there's stories I've heard in different reviews and different things that basically George Lucas made that up like the day of shooting. He was just like, well, we're going to be a conveyor belt, and I don't know if that's true or not, I have no idea, but it feels that way. It doesn't feel like it's part of the story, it just feels like here all of a sudden they're on this obstacle course, and they're dodging things, and it's just lame.
So, what was your next question again?
Yeah, I was just asking about the droid war, and what you thought about that. Did you think it was cool seeing all the, I thought it was cool seeing all the Jedi, like fighting, and I thought that was definitely the best special effects of the film, and it was just, I thought the music was really well done in that segment, and it was fun to see.
I totally agree. That was a fun part of the movie.
Yeah, I really like, this is really what the prequels were about, is showing you what it was like when the Jedi Order was established, what it was like when the Republic was in operation, and this is the only time you get to see all the Jedi out in force together. This is the first time you've really seen that, and it's so cool to have and just see they're like a small army of fighters that can take on just enormous groups of assailants, and
Yeah.
it is really cool. On the purple lightsaber, Samuel L. Jackson wanted a purple lightsaber, so they put one in.
Yeah.
And now I know I played Knights of the Old Republic, the video game from years ago, and in there you got to build a lightsaber, and there they explained it that you had different crystals that go into the hilt of the lightsaber. One of them was a color crystal, and so you could make it red or blue or green, yellow, purple, really whatever color crystal you chose. Typically it's meant to align with whatever your role is as a Jedi, would alter your color. Purple was not assigned to any particular role in that case, but you were able to change the color just like you can change to red or green or blue. Purple was an option if you found the right crystal to focus it. So that's the thoughts on the purple anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I get it why people are get annoyed by something like that, but because it just shows sort of his lack of attention to detail, and that shows a certain laziness. I feel like that I hope that it feels like they're really paying attention to the details, but on the other hand, I don't know. I just feel like it's such thin gruel when you've got such meaty stuff to criticize in this thing that that wouldn't be the one I would pick. But what about Dooku? For some reason, I always have a hard time with that name, Dooku. What do you think? I mean, I think Christopher Lee is pretty great.
Remember that Abby said it rhymes with doo-doo.
Okay, good. Yeah, what did you think of that character? Did you think it was a worthy villain? Did you like kind of the performance, all of that?
Well, I wish he had been the villain from episode 1 all the way through.
Yeah.
Because I feel like he is strong enough. He's obviously been involved with Darth Sidious for some time, and it's kind of a secret. Like, he's not really revealed his hand with the Jedi until this movie. They don't realize, they know he's left the Order, but they don't know that he's joined the Sith. So he's kind of this gray character, if you would, as far as the Jedi were concerned, but still not seen as an enemy. And then you hear with the clone army, or the cloners mentioned a Darth Tyrannus, or a Tyrannus. They didn't say Darth Tyrannus, but we find out later in the movie that Darth Tyrannus is Count Dooku. And so from at least 10 years ago, he was involved in procuring this droid army, or the clone army. And so he's been working with Palpatine all this time. So I'm like, there's always two Siths. So what was his role when Darth Maul was around? So it just seems odd that there's Darth Maul. I feel like Dooku is a strong enough character. It would have been good enough to have him in episode 1 and just not have him die.
Yeah, I agree. I do. But did you have any thoughts about that, Abby, on that one?
No, I mean, I think he's a fine villain. I don't think he's one of the best villains, but he works for me.
I mean, I think it is probably a good example that Christopher Lee, being such a great actor, I think he is one of the ones out of the prequel trilogy that is able to rise above the fray. I feel like he does a good job with what he's given.
Yeah, I can get on board with that.
As I think about the lightsaber question, just going back a little bit, but it's cool because we have a really limited window into lightsabers in the prequel or in the original trilogy.
Yeah.
Because you see Darth Vader has one, and you see Obi-Wan has one, and Luke has one, and so you really don't have a big picture of what they were like and how customizable they were. When you see Count Dooku, he has a curved hilt on his, and it's really just kind of showing you, there's another way to design these, and then you see the purple one from Mace Windu, but I think there's just a lot more customization available than what we see in the originals. So just kind of another thought is there's a lot more to this world that it's not necessarily a rule that you have to have red or blue or green, but I think that's just all we've saw in the originals.
Yeah, yeah, that could be true. Okay, so the next question I have, you already said some of your thoughts on, is what do you think of CG Yoda and the lightsaber fight with Dooku? And I'll go first on this one. I hate it. I do not like it because Yoda is not a character that needs a lightsaber. He is somebody that literally, like a few scenes before, he's shown picking up a giant column and throwing it with the Force, throwing it across the room. And he should be able, he's stronger than Dooku. He should be able to just literally use the Force and fling him across the other side of the building. He doesn't need to be in a lightsaber battle with Dooku. It doesn't make any sense. And I mean, why would he put himself in a situation where he could possibly be vulnerable? It's just, I feel like it's just for show, and I just feel like it's not who Yoda is. Yoda isn't somebody who, I don't know, fights like that. Yoda is somebody who uses the Force. He's a master of the Force, so he doesn't need a lightsaber. And so that's why I have a quote here. It says that he says, I think I can't remember where, but he says, "For my ally is the Force, and a powerful ally it is." He tells that, I think, to Luke. Can't remember, but so that's him to me, and so that's why I really don't like the scene. And also, I just feel like I like having the puppet. I guess I do. I'm a traditionalist with that. I don't think it looks good. I don't think it looks like Yoda to me, and it's just, so I'm not a fan. But what did you guys think of it?
Well, I really like the scene myself. First, on the lightsaber thing, I don't think he needs one, but he's a Jedi, and you don't become a Jedi without mastering the lightsaber as well as mastering use of the Force. And so to me, it's a resource, and he doesn't go to it a lot, but it is something that he has. And in the duel with Count Dooku, they both kind of figured out, Dooku's throwing the Force lightning at him, and the coolest thing I've ever seen to that point in the series, you see Yoda actually absorb the Force lightning and throw it back at him, and just like, wow, that's a thing.
Yeah, that was cool.
So I really like that part. And then you also see at the end of the fight, he goes back to kind of hobbling along on his cane. And so my impression is that he uses the Force to move himself around during the fight. When he's doing the lightsaber duel, that's how he's able to move so quickly, is actually using the Force to move himself. And that's my perception of it. I don't know if that was the intent, but I think it's obvious he doesn't move around that comfortably in normal life, so I see him using the Force in that way. But I liked it. I think this isn't even the best fight that he has. He's going to go after Palpatine in the next one, and it's amazing. You just get to see what power he has, and that when he's training Luke later, and he's trying to tell him, size matters not, and just the rules and the laws that he's trying to explain to him, you're like, this guy totally gets it. Just listen to him, But I like the scene.
I mean, but don't you see what I'm saying, though, about how he could just pick him up and throw him across a room? He was just picking up a giant column. Like, I just don't see the need. Like, I'm sure he can do it, but I don't see the need to do it. And so that's why it feels like it's just for show to me. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and Dooku's the one who says we're at an impasse. Basically, it sounds like he may have enough mastery of the Force himself that Yoda isn't able to just pick him up and slam him against a wall, with the Force, because they both have command over the Force lightning. They both have command over objects, and so maybe it's that both of them have enough resistance that the other one can't pick them up and throw them away. That'd be my conjecture. Is Yoda better? Yes. I'll just say flat out yes, but in that particular way, I don't think he can. When Count Dooku is being able to focus on him and focus his efforts on not being taken in that way, I think they were matched, and so that's why they decided to go to the lightsaber duel as a way to kind of break the impasse.
Yeah, I
Interesting.
think I do. I can see that, like that whole, their kind of force face-off there that they have. Um, I could see that as being illustrative of, okay, these guys are equal in power. They can't just smash each other with the force. They need some way to solve this conflict, and so they bust out their lightsabers. It also seems like it might be, um, I don't know, kind of an honor thing. It doesn't seem like a very honorable way to kill someone, to just smash them. Like, oh, I'll use the force to drop this rock on your head, and boom, you're gone. Um,
It is more of a Sith move.
yeah. And as far as the lightsabers go, like, of course he'll have one, because he's a Jedi. But so, I told you before, I have a brother who's like a major Star Wars geek and has been since he was a little kid.
We should get him on one of these.
We should.
That would be fun.
So he consumed a lot of the extra features, and he read the books and the magazines and watched all the documentaries and over and over and over. And so I have a lot of weird Star Wars knowledge that some people probably don't. Not because I tried to get it, but because it went through my ears 8,000 times.
It's like me and Monty Python.
Yeah. Um, so my understanding is that lightsabers are really difficult to handle. They're supposed to be like this powerful thing, and in the original trilogy, generally they use two hands to control it because it's this big. It's almost like handling a really heavy sword. There's a lot of power in creating this beam that comes out of this, and so it's hard to control. So it takes the Force for a Jedi to really even be able to control it. That's why the average person doesn't have a lightsaber in this universe, because they can't use a lightsaber. It's too difficult a weapon to handle. So it does make sense that Yoda, as a really powerful Jedi, would have mad lightsaber skills, and that he would, like, his using his skills with the lightsaber is a show of his use of the Force. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and the side point on there, when Obi-Wan goes to Yoda to ask about the missing planet in the records, Yoda is training younglings on using lightsabers. He's actually an instructor.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I have no doubt that he can. It just felt like to me like that he wouldn't in that situation. Like but I see certainly valid perspectives from you guys as well. So I actually only had one more question. It was hard in this movie for me to come up with really thoughtful questions. But I just had basically R2 and C3PO are in this one a lot more. And was that something that you enjoyed? I guess you liked?
Yes. So first, this one you get to see R2-D2 bust out his. He's got like a little jetpack in his arm, so he's able to fly, and that was really cool. And so and he's full of surprises. I think every episode you get to see something else about him that you're like, oh, that's so cool. And C-3PO, probably my favorite scene is when he gets split into two parts and his head is on one of the combat droids and his body has a combat droid head on it, and just getting just the hilarity that ensues because of that. But again, that's the type of thing Lucas should have been going to in Phantom Menace and not to Jar Jar. I was really relieved at the reduced role that Jar Jar had in this movie, though I was still pained by the scenes he was in.
Yes, I think you got to give a lot of credit to Anthony Daniels, the actor that's C-3PO, and a lot of it's just his voice performance in this one. He's great, I think. He does a great job.
I agree. When I first saw this movie as a teenager, the role of C-3PO and R2-D2 was more important to me. Like, I noticed it a lot and I cared and I thought it was cool that they were there. This time I honestly didn't even really pay that much attention to their presence in the movie. They were there, but I didn't really care. Our 6-year-old liked them, and she's looking for them in the movies. So, so I don't know. I think they're good. I think they have value. I don't have a problem with them being there.
Well, and I actually do think that they provide some degree of heart for the fact that when he brings back his mother, you know, like they were created by him or C-3PO was, and I don't know, you definitely get, I don't know, it just shows that they have some history with Anakin and the mother and all of that, which I think is good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I love that tidbit that he was created by Darth Vader, you know, and he claims, oh, the Maker, he's returned. You know, it's just really cool to have that connection. But I also see them, as I mentioned last time, I think they're the silent witnesses to the entire saga. You know, they're in every episode, and they've seen this story beginning to end. And while C-3PO has his mind wiped eventually, R2-D2, you know, he knows what's going on beginning to end, and it's really cool to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Did you guys have any other sort of thoughts or questions or anything that you...
My last thought, my parting thought, is that the great tragedy of this movie is that in Anakin, we have a ton of potential for this complex, interesting character that we could really love and root for. And instead, we have a giant cliche who speaks in lines that are 100% angsty teenage, lovesick lines. And that's what really kills me about this.
You know what I think did it was the hair. I can't, you know, and I get that they can say, you know, this is just what the Padawans did, but who is making this choice of the rat tail that's 3 feet long in conjunction with the small ponytail? I can't look at that. And so I'm really glad that after this movie, we're done with that on the main characters. Episodes 1 and 2, again, I see as, you know, there's enough good there that I watch them. When I go back and watch all the movies, I do watch these because there is merit there. You know, maybe maybe I'll make a YouTube video and just cut them down to about 15 minutes and watch those instead. But I'm really excited because the next 4 movies, I love all of them. And so I do see these as necessary evils to get some of the backstory, to know what's going on. But, yeah.
Well, and I think it would have been possible to have basically told like an anti-hero kind of story. Like I'm not a Breaking Bad watcher, but I know that it's kind of that type of story. You know, this person kind of, but kind of descending into making all these bad choices, and but you still somehow sort of root for him. And this has been the last couple of years. Has been sort of the season of the anti-hero, and I have to say none of them are shows that I watch, but I've heard they're really good. But it is possible to kind of create a story with a character who's making poor choices that you're still sort of interested in, and that you sort of find them kind of likable and interesting. And I think that you know, if he had just gotten someone to help him with the writing and the acting, and I mean, that it could have been good. It really could have. And I also saw, like I said, I hated it. Like my worst movie of all time, the one I hate the most, is called Drop Dead Gorgeous. I hated it. But for me, this was a close in the top 5 for a long time. And I have to say, I did find more value this watch through because I hadn't seen it since I first saw it, because I was just done. It's kind of like, for me, Green Lantern was that way too. I was like, I saw it, I hated it so much, I was like, I'm done with superhero movies. And so anyway, I was telling Abby and Jeremy earlier, I actually have not seen episode 3. because it came out when I was on my mission, and so it's in that black hole of 2003 to 2005 that I've only seen like 3 movies. So this will be a really interesting experience for me. I'm excited.
Yeah, I think you'll really like it. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at how it compares to the others.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to say too that Abby had mentioned the lightsabers. That it is a great amount of power, and I think it is the Force. That allows you to wield them. But you kind of see in the original movies they were always the two-handed broadsword type fighting, and in these they're trying to show you, that maybe the evolution of the style, and part of it is in episodes 4 through 6. Aside from Mark Hamill, you've got old, or aside from Luke, these are, Obi-Wan and Darth Vader they're old,
Right.
and so, while they still have the Force, it's still a tougher thing to wield, and so I think it's nice to see everyone in their youth being able to just really go to town with the lightsaber and treat it as an easier weapon to wield than in the future. But yeah, I think Episode 3, it is my favorite Star Wars movie. It's probably not a common thing really, but I'm really excited to get there because I feel like it's what we wanted from the prequel trilogy. It's the fulfillment of that promise. Is how did he become Darth Vader? And I think it's really it's the crux of the whole series, and so that's what really takes it from it. If you watch the original trilogy, it's a story about Luke. But if you watch it when you watch all 6 together, you see it's really the story is Anakin throughout, and this is the one that shows you that.
Yeah.
So I'm excited.
One last thing, real quick. What do you think of the Force Awakens trailer? Gotta ask. Did you get a chance to see it?
Yeah, we watched it a couple times.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Oh my gosh, I think it's a perfect trailer. It doesn't tell you anything, but it gets you really excited, and I'm so excited.
It raises more questions than answers for sure.
Yeah, the best trailers, they raise more questions than answers, and that's it's got everybody wondering, well, what's that, or who's that, and probably the best gimmick ever. I'm assuming it's intentional. They've left Luke off of the recent poster, and they left Luke out of the trailer except for possibly reaching out his hand to touch R2-D2, and everybody's wondering, where's Luke? Is he evil? What's he doing? And so there's just a lot of buzz. But I just have to say, I was almost breathless watching the thing, just like, okay, I have to wait 60 days now. But,
Yeah.
It's really exciting, and I think bringing in the original actors is just amazing. So I'm really excited to see, even if their roles are diminished, they're not necessarily the main characters. I'm really excited to see the movie, and I trust J.J. Abrams. I've been really happy as a Star Wars or Star Trek fan. I've been really happy with how he's treated those, and also a fan of Lost. So I've not seen anything J.J. Abrams that has upset me. So I'm really putting my trust out in him, and I'm really excited to see what he did.
Me too. Okay. We are going to actually not meet next Sunday because of Halloween as Saturday night, but we will meet the following Sunday after that, and we will discuss Episode 3. And I'm really excited. It's going to be a lot of fun. So
all right,
thanks.
see you then.
If you want to plug your Twitters or anything real quick before we go.
All right, hit us at Abby_Kid on Twitter and at Jeremy Lee Kid.
Nope, at Jeremy_Kid.
At Jeremy_Kid. And we have a website too. We're currently hoping to adopt, and you can learn more about us at jeremyandabbyadopt.wordpress.com.
Yeah, definitely check that out. And I'm at Smiling LDS Girl on all social medias, and my movie review blog is 54disneyreviews.com, and I will be posting up a written review of Attack of the Clones probably tomorrow. So thanks so much, and I really appreciate you guys chatting about this terrible movie with me.
All right, thanks for having us.
Okay, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.